Welcome to my recap of the performances by Mexican players and managers in Europe. This episode will cover the week spanning from August 29th to September 4th. Before the transfers that happened before the start of the season, like that of Raul Jimenez to Fulham, Edson Alvarez to West Ham, Rodolfo Pizarro to Athens, Julian Araujo being loaned out to Las Palmas, Johan Vazquez returning from loan to Genoa, Luis Chavez joined Dinamo Moscow from Pachuca for about $6.8 million. In addition, then, a few days later, Jorge Sanchez joined Porto from Ajax on a season loan with the option to buy. The option to buy becomes mandatory if he makes 15 appearances and the price is about 4 million euros. But on transfer deadline day, 3 moves would happen. One of them was the most expected, as Cesar Montes managed to leave Espanyol after they got relegated last season. He heads to Almeria in the top division of Spanish football for a fee of $14 million. His contract runs to 2028 as he hopes to help Almeria stay in La Liga and avoid relegation. The other 2 transfers really caught me by surprise and were kind of a little bit upsetting. The lesser of the 2 evils, I guess, is Chucky leaving Napoli and returning to PSV in the Eredivisie. PSV paid approximately $15 million for his services, and this may be a good move. I believe he'll get more playing time as he was struggling at Napoli, where he hadn't played a single minute since the start of the season. But the final and most upsetting transfer was that of Jesus Corona, Tecatito, back to Monterrey in Mexico. He's still only 30 years old and could have played a few more seasons at Sevilla or in Portugal or Netherlands. I suppose he was growing frustrated of his limited playing time, but that is to be expected at a relatively big club who's competing in the Champions League, although they are having a poor season so far. But returning to Mexico is the exact problem that the national team has. He isn't the first one to leave Europe this season, as Eric Gutierrez moved back to Chivas from Chivas or Pachuca? Maybe Monterrey. He moved back, basically, from PSV. But I guess they don't really want to compete at the highest level anymore. I mean, I understand that Mexican teams in La Liga MX want to be competitive, but in the long run, they are harming the development of the national team, and there's just so much corruption, like, in the federation, I couldn't even know how to start. But, like I said, this was truly upsetting, as he is no longer a Mexican abroad. So, as such, I won't cover Tecatito that much. But moving on to the actual performance itself, we start in England and cover both the Prem and the Carabao Cup. West Ham would play newly promoted Luton Town, sitting in 19th place early in the weekend. West Ham would come away with the win. Edson Alvarez would once again be in the starting 11 and would play the entirety of the match. Although Edson did not contribute directly to a goal, despite having a shot blocked and creating a chance, he was integral in West Ham's opening goal in the 37th minute. He played a 1-2 with James Ward-Prowse, followed up by another 1-2 with Jared Bowen. He then passed the ball to Paquetá, who crossed it into the path of Bowen, who had kept his run going, and who headed the ball into the back of the net. Throughout the rest of the match, Edson completed 64 out of 74 passes, had a shot blocked while blocking 2 himself, as well as 5 clearances and 7 ball recoveries. Alvarez doubles his minutes as they increased to 183 total in 3 appearances, one of them being as a sub in his first match. His shot on target earned him an XG of 0.14, and his chance created an XA of 0.04. Given that Fulham did not play European football this season, they entered the Carabao Cup in the second round, where they were drawing against Spurs, who also have no European football this season. This was one of only 2 fixtures in the second round to feature 2 Prem teams, the other being Nottingham versus Burnley. Jimenez did not start the match, but he did come in the 83rd minute with the game at 1-1. An unfortunate own goal put Fulham ahead in the 19th minute before Richarlison equalized in the 56th with a header. At the time of the equalizer, Fulham were playing a man down as Tete had to go back to the dressing room to find and grab a new boot since his had ripped. Fulham were very unlucky to concede, however, since they were basically playing a man down. Penalties were decided to draw, and Raul, who kicked second for Fulham, placed his down the middle of the goal. Spurs' Davinson Sanchez would be the only one that missed as Fulham moved on to the third round, where they will face Norwich. This match was on Monday, August 29th, 3 days after drawing with Arsenal. But on Saturday, they faced the defending champions and league leaders, Man City, at the Etihad, and it was not a good day. Fulham managed to hold City off for half an hour before Julian Alvarez opened the floodgates. Raul Jimenez managed to get a shot on target that Ederson parried away, but the ball fell to Tim Ream, who equalized 2 minutes after City's goal. So this gave some hope to City, but boy, were we robbed of that. And that was basically an assist from Raul, but not technically. City managed to take back the lead right before halftime, but there is controversy to the goal since the ball went through the legs of Akanji, who was in an offside position, and he blocked the keeper's view. And I saw the Premier League VAR review, like the show where they go over incidents, and the president or whatever of VAR said that goal should have been called offside and not given, and I agree with that. But I guess the ref on that day thought otherwise. And the result wouldn't have changed much if the goal got called back, since Haaland would seal the win for City with a hat trick. Here we can see Fulham's position in the table throughout the season so far, along with the fixtures of the Carabao Cup that led to Fulham's clash with Norwich. Norwich beat QPR in the first round and the Bristol City in the second round, who had beat Oxford United in the round prior. And like I just spoke about, Fulham beat Spurs on penalties to advance to the third round, which, playing against Norwich should be an easier match than playing against Spurs. So, theoretically, or hopefully, Fulham can move on to the round after that. They tied against Arsenal in the league, beat Spurs on penalties, but just couldn't against Man City. This was a valiant effort by Fulham through such a rough patch of matchups. The league leader, the runners-up, and I guess Spurs not really, but they are a better team, I guess, on paper than Fulham, especially with the arrival of Ange Postecoglou. I think that's how you pronounce it. Luton, Palace, and Norwich in the next three should see them do even better. And as for Raul, these two matches bring his total minutes played to 322 in 5 appearances. Unfortunately, he has yet to score a goal or provide an assist, but he has an XG of 0.72 and an XA of 0.26 so far. Fulham's loss drops them a single position to 13th place, as their goal differential took a massive hit with that loss to Man City. They should, however, pick up some points in the coming weeks. Moving near the top of the table, West Ham actually dropped to 4th from 2nd despite their win against Luton. This is because of goal differential, however, since Spurs scored 5 against Burnley and Liverpool scored 3 against Aston Villa. This drop should not discount this feat, as West Ham remained undefeated, but they do face Man City next week, where they will surely be tested. Moving on to Spain, Real Betis would get the minimum win against Rayo Vallecano, as they only beat them 1-0. But that one goal was a wonderful free kick from Willian José from right outside the D. This made the difference, as Betis took all 3 points, and Guardado would be subbed on for the second half, in which he would complete 90% of his passes, with 7 of them going into the final third. He also had an interception and 3 ball recoveries. This match alone tripled his minutes for the season so far, as he had 73 minutes and 4 appearances, all coming off the bench. Javier Aguirre's Mallorca would play a 5th place Athletic Bilbao that is probably aiming to finish in the top 4, while Mallorca is struggling to avoid the relegation zone. A favorable result for Mallorca, as they managed to sit back and keep the match goalless and to take a point and go home, which is all that matters, I suppose. Mallorca was outpassed and outshot, but not outscored. Las Palmas played against a 3rd place Girona side that are flying high in La Liga so far this season. The match was fairly even, as you can see by the stats. Girona did have a goal disallowed in the 43rd minute due to committing a foul in the build-up. Araujo almost put his team at a disadvantage, as the ball hit his arm inside of the penalty area, but the referee did not give the penalty. He was lucky to come away with that one. In the 58th minute, Araujo received a cross just outside the keeper's box that he headed towards goal. Unfortunately, the keeper was able to deflect it. The game seemed like it was going to end goalless, but a goal from Girona in the 80th minute put the game to rest and gave them the win. Really unlucky, I suppose, for Las Palmas. In this game, Araujo, it was a pretty good game for him. Despite his saved shot, he also had 5 passes into the final third, 1 block, 2 clearances, and 4 ball recoveries. His minutes now total 225 so far. Like I said earlier, Cesar Montes joined Almeria, who were sitting in 19th place in the table before he joined. On Friday, they would face Celta de Vigo, who were just a spot above them in the table. Cesar Montes did not play, as he completed his transfer that day, but Almeria lost 3-2. 2 first-half goals put Celta ahead, but 2 goals early in the second half leveled the score. Unfortunately, Svedberg managed to score a header from across in the 87th minute to put the match away in favor of Celta. Looking at the table, it is not going well for Mexicans in Spain so far. Were it not for the return of Tecatito to Mexico, the bottom 4 teams would have a Mexican player on their roster. But in 19th place is Almeria, who have 1 point coming from a draw against Cadiz last weekend. Montes will hope to improve their defense as they have conceded 9 and hold the worst goal differential in the league, and to avoid relegation to the division that he just left. One spot above Almeria is Las Palmas, who stay with 2 points after losing this week. They are still searching for a win this season. And one spot above them is Mallorca, also on 2 points and with the same goal differential, only ahead by having scored more goals than Las Palmas. This is critical because Aguirre may soon be let go, similar to Villarreal's Quique Setién, who are actually ahead of Mallorca in 15th. The only Mexican to avoid the bottom half of the table is Andrés Guardado's Betis, who sit in 7th place with 7 points, as they got their second win this week. That is, however, with him getting limited minutes. Now moving on to the lower league of Spanish football. Sporting Gijón will play against 11th place Burgos and come away with the win. The match was even in the 78th minute when Lozano was subbed in. But in the 8th minute of stoppage time, Dani Caipo ran with the ball after receiving it near the middle of the pitch. He cut inside and scored the game winner for Gijón. As for Lozano himself, he had a shot go off target and showed him that he was on the pitch. Carrillo, however, has yet to have any appearances or any minutes. The win brings Gijón up to 7th spot, just outside of the promotion playoff spot. But this table is very tight, as the difference between 7th and 22nd is just 4 points, so it can easily be shaken up by a few results. But this trend is looking good for Gijón, as this is the highest position they have been so far, and they seem to be rising. Barça Athletic managed a 2-1 win against Real Unión. The second goal scored by Unai Hernandez was such a beauty. He controlled the pass, took a flick past the defender, and then shot from just inside the box to hit the post and let the ball bounce in. This win brings Barça Athletic up to 9th in the table, although it's still too early to have anything set in stone yet. Moving over to Italy and those playing in the Serie A. 16th place Torino would be host to Genoa, who were seeking to replicate last week's win against Lazio. The match was pretty uneventful, as the expected goals of both teams suggest, but it looked to be a goalless draw, which Genoa wouldn't prefer, but they would have taken it over the loss that actually happened. A goal from the tightest of angles in the 6th minute of stoppage time would give the win to Torino and make it impossible for Genoa to reply. Vasquez had a decent game, having some progressive passes and 3 ball recoveries, as well as 4 clearances. So far this season, he has scored 1 goal in 4 appearances, from an expected 0.56. Salernitana would play against 7th place Lecce, who were undefeated and remained undefeated after beating Salernitana 2-0. Ochoa would start the match and concede in just the 6th minute from a close-range header that found him out of position. Saves in the 18th and 57th minutes would keep the game close before Salernitana hit the post in the 73rd to almost tie the game. Another save in the 4th minute of stoppage time would see the ball deflect off of a defender's arm after a shot from Lecce leading to a penalty. Ochoa was unable to save it, diving the wrong way, and Salernitana picked up their first defeat of the season. Ochoa conceded 2 goals from an expected 1.85. This brings his goals conceded to 5 so far, underperforming his expected 3.78. He still has 12 saves to his name, however. Salernitana have dropped down to 16th place after their first defeat, having picked up only 2 points so far. They will hope to pick up some points soon to avoid a relegation battle. Another team hoping to avoid relegation is Genoa, after their defeat to Torino drops into 14th, tied with Monza with the exact same record. And now for a new league getting some coverage, it's La Liga Portugal. Porto would play against 6th place Arouca in a match that could send either team down from the top of the table. A draw that occurred due to Porto's inefficient and unclinical fishing, however. They had great opportunities and squandered most of them. Arouca scored first in the 84th minute for what seemed to be the winner, but Porto were given a penalty in the 15th minute of stoppage time, which they missed. Yep, they missed it and instead scored in the 19th minute of stoppage time to equalize. The draw was pretty, not favorable, but generous to Porto, as other teams around them also drew, allowing them to retain their second place in the table, despite not being as clinical as they could. I mean, they had 69% possession and 2.67 expected goals compared to Arouca's 31% possession and 0.34 expected goals. As for Jorge Sanchez, he wasn't featured as he has just recently completed his transfer. Moving on to the Netherlands. Now, Lozano was not a part of the squad, probably because he had just finished his transfer as well. But it didn't really make much of a difference as PSV comfortably won against 17th place Valvik. I think it's maybe how you pronounce it, Valvik. Sorry for butchering that. Hopefully, after the international break, Lozano can jump right into the starting 11, although he does have some competition with the likes of Noah Lang and Johan Bakayoko for that right wing spot. Feyenoord played against 16th place Utrecht and repeated the results from last week as they beat Utrecht 5-1. Santi Jimenez would start the match and provide a great performance. I mean, in the 7th minute, he would head the ball into the ground in between the keeper's legs to open the floodgates. I mean, I have never seen a goal like that, so it was pretty incredible to witness. Utrecht would tie the game in the 19th minute, coming from a scramble in the box after a corner that came from a defensive mistake in which the defender bumped the ball out of the keeper's hand and out of bounds. Santi had a shot saved in the 30th minute before scoring a great goal to make it 3-1 just after halftime, as he muscled off two defenders, cutting inside the box and shooting it with such power that it basically went through the keeper's glove. Unfortunately, Santi was subbed off in the 55th minute as he suffered an injury. He walked off the field, so it seems like it wasn't too serious, especially since he also joined Mexico at the training camp for their upcoming friendlies. Even though he came off 10 minutes after halftime, his performance was enough to earn him man of the match as he scored 2 goals from 3 shots on target out of a total of 5 shots. He brings his total goal tally to 5 in just 387 minutes, spread over 5 matches. He scores about once every 78 minutes, and he is outperforming his expected goals so far this season. Looking at the Eredivisie table, both teams we look at are near the top of the table. Feyenoord rise up to 4th with this win as they remain undefeated in 4 games. 2 wins and 2 draws gives them 8 points. Looking slightly above them is PSV, who remain perfect after 3 games, winning them all. This raises them up to 2nd as they're only behind due to the number of goals scored. It will be interesting to see how these two teams do whenever they have to play against each other. Will it be Truki's new team that come victorious, or Chaco's team where he has already been successful? The Belgian League is up next. The second leg of this Conference League qualifier would be played in Turkey to decide which team would play in the Conference League group stage and which team would be knocked out of Europe for the season. Adana would score in the first half stoppage time to equalize the aggregate score at 2-2. This scoreline would remain throughout the rest of the regular and extra time, which ultimately led to penalties. Finally, Genk were successful in a European tournament, as they were able to win in the shootout 5-4. This means that Genk and Arteaga will be playing in the Conference League this season. Additionally, on Sunday, September 3rd, Genk played against 4th place Anderlecht in the league, a game in which Arteaga would start, but as a center back instead of his usual left back position. This was a game that would be tough for Genk, as it became tougher as they would go a man down in only the 14th minute, after Ba received his second yellow. How do you receive your second yellow so early in the match? But anyway, they managed to hold Anderlecht and actually had better chances to score themselves, but in the 70th minute, Amuzu would put Anderlecht ahead. It wouldn't be until the 6th minute of stoppage time that Genk would pull an equalizer back to salvage a point from the match. For his part, Arteaga played well, completing 34 out of 40 passes and having 6 ball recoveries. And looking at the Belgian First Division table, Genk continued to fall down the ranks as this draw drops them down to 9th from 6th last match day. It is important to note, however, that they do have a game in hand over some of the teams above them, but so do 3 other teams in the top half of the table. So their actual position is anywhere between 4th at the very best and 10th at the very worst. Going to Greece now with the Super League. On Wednesday, August 30th, the second leg of the Champions League qualifier will be played in Greece between AEK and Royal Antwerp. Orbelin would start the match as he had all of the qualifying games. Athens were lucky to keep the game 0-0 after the 60th minute, as Antwerp missed a chance that seemed harder to miss than to score. As the cross came into an attacker at the mouth of an open goal, he proceeded to then shoot it well wide of the goal. Their luck ran out as Antwerp found a goal in the 73rd minute to raise the aggregate score to 2-0. A 90th minute goal by Athens gave them hope to find an equalizer and send their match into extra time. That was until Antwerp's immediate response that sealed the game. Pineda had a good game as he completed 70 out of 85 passes with 18 going into the final third. He created 2 chances, had 2 shots, and 10 ball recoveries. Pizarro was subbed on in the 80th minute and also created 2 chances with his limited time that he had. With this result, Athens, are demoted to the group stages of the Europa League this season. A few days later, on September 3rd, they would play against 11th place NFC Voulous in the Greek league. Pizarro was not featured in the league game, and Orbelin was subbed onto the field in the 77th minute, with the score sitting at 2-2. During his time on the field, Pineda had a shot off target, recovered the ball twice, and had 3 of his 18 completed passes into the final third. But a penalty in stoppage time gave AEK the win as they rise in the table to 6th place. They do have a game in hand over most teams, and that can make a big difference. Now let's move over to the Premier League. No, not that one, the Russian one, and the Russian Cup. Luis Chavez made his debut for Dynamo Moscow in the Russian Cup against Spartak Moscow. He came in as a sub in the 61st minute with his side already 4-0 down. A consolation goal in the 65th would be all that Dynamo could muster as they remained second in the group with half the matches played so far. This game took place on Tuesday, August 29th, but on Sunday, September 3rd, they played against 11th place Rostov in the league. They managed to win the game 2-1 while being more threatening than Rostov. Chavez was not started, but did play the second half, where he completed 17 out of 18 passes, 3 of which were going into the final third, and had a block, interception, clearance, and a recovery. A decent game for Luis, who I assume is still getting used to his new environment. And looking at the Russian league, Dynamo sits in 4th, but tied with 2nd and 3rd on 14 points. The fight for 2nd place is tight, and looking at the Russian Cup, Dynamo sits 2nd in the group with 3 games remaining. If they achieve 1st or 2nd, they will qualify for the next round, but if they finish 3rd, they'll have to play through playoffs to get back into the Cup. That is all for this week, and I will not be covering the leagues next week as we do have an international break. Instead, I will be covering the national teams and the players called up. Additionally, I will be covering the European competitions now that the groups have been drawn. But thank you for watching and see you next time. Hasta luego, raza.